Hey guys, this is test 38 game 3. This is the job applicants game. It's a matching game, also known as assignment. We're basically looking to assign these 7 people right here to one of these 3 departments: management, production, or sales. We are told quite a few rules about them. I've already listed them up here. Don't worry about the bottom diagrams, I'll deal with those later. Just look at the top one for now. We have H and Y in the same department, so I drew HY with a box around them. They will horizontally be together in the management, production, or sales level. We know that F and G are in different departments, so horizontal, not block for those guys. Conditional statement, X sales requires W production. I'm not bothering to take the contrapositive here simply because it is not useful to do so. Not WP arrow not XS would not be a useful conditional statement, because if W was not at production, where might it be? W or S. If X was not at sales, where might it be? M or P. Very vague, not that useful. Finally, F is on production. I drew that right here, and since F and G conflict, we can infer that G is not on production. Now this is a pretty bare bones initial setup. Not a whole lot of inferences we've made here. We've inferred that G cannot be on production. We could also infer that neither H nor Y could be on the management level, because we know that there are 2 of them and they are always together. They have to be in either production or sales. So we could map that. Kind of obvious. I'm not going to bother. What we can do better than this is actually use our rules and knowledge about the variables to create multiple main diagrams, laying out the game's initial possibilities as we go. So if you look at the rules, you want to think about which of the rules is most powerful, which rule is most influential. It's not going to be the conditional statement, because we don't know whether that's going to actually be activated or not. We don't know whether we're going to have X on sales. If we do, things become quite limited, but if we don't, things remain very vague. We're not going to use the FG thing, because all we learned from that was that G could not be in production. So that really leaves this HY block here. H and Y are very limited. There's 2 of them out of a total of 3 slots on each of the P and S levels, the production and sales levels. So for that reason, it is actually pretty useful to make 2 main diagrams at the start based upon whether HY goes to production or HY goes to sales. So we're going to use the first 2 diagrams here. On the top one, we can put HY on production, and on the other, we can put HY on sales. This will be the first step we take towards making our multiple main diagrams. So we got F on production and HY on sales in the second diagram here. Now, where do we go from there? Well, if you look at these 2, you want to think about which one of them is more limited, which one has fewer possibilities, the bottom one or the top one. It's actually going to be the top one, because the production level is completely full. There are no empties on it, whereas in the second diagram here, all 3 levels still have empty slots. So top diagram is more limited. We're going to start with that. Now, the only rule we have not yet put into play here is the X sales requires W production rule. If X were on sales, W would be on production. However, production is full, W cannot be on production, therefore X cannot be on sales, so X must go on the management level in that only empty management slot, leaving our remaining 3 variables, G, I, and W, to go on sales for the top diagram. Now, in the second diagram here, the one that is bottom so far, we still have things pretty open-ended. X could go on sales, but it does not have to. In fact, X could go on any of these 3 levels. If X were to go on sales, things would become quite limited, but X does not have to go on sales. So I'm actually going to make 3 different versions of this diagram, one with X on management, one with X on production, and one with X on sales. I know this sounds like a lot of work up front, but we are being systematic about how we create these diagrams, so we will ensure that we cover all of the possibilities for the game, paving the way for the questions to be incredibly easy afterwards. So I'm going to create those 3 different diagrams. Please follow along with me here. So the top diagram, out of the HY sales level, I'm going to put X on management. In the second one, X on production. Third one, X on sales. Now, of course, G cannot be on production for any of these because G is never on production. Now, the bottom diagram, X sales, requires W production. G cannot be on production, of course, so G must go to management, leaving I to go on production. The other 2 diagrams are a little bit more open-ended at the start. However, with this one right here, the second one now, G cannot go to production, it must go to sales, leaving I and W to go on production. Now in this third one here, G can't go to production, could go to management or sales, we don't know which one. However, this leaves only I or W to go on production. G will go to management or to sales, and then one of W or I will go to management, whichever one did not go to production, and this is our initial setup for the game. Question number 14, general orientation question. Obviously we have a lot here in the way of our initial setup, but even so, it's still often best to work through these questions by process of elimination. Take one rule at a time, apply that rule to all 5 choices looking for violations. So we could start with the conditional X sales requires W production. Any choice containing X on sales must have W on production or else it is bad. A is the only choice with X on sales, yet it has W on management, not production, so A is eliminated. Next, we could use the rule that G is never on production. B and C both contain G on production, so they are eliminated. We know F has to be on production, but D and E both comply with that, so that rule is not going to help us right now. And finally, we have H, Y together, whereas D has H on production and Y on sales, having them apart, so D is eliminated, leaving E as our answer to number 14. Next, number 15. A complete and accurate list of applicants who cannot be on production. Well, we certainly know that G cannot be on production. We have G with a slash through it next to that level. So any choice not mentioning G has to be bad. Therefore, A, C, and E are all eliminated, leaving B and D. So the question becomes, could H and Y be on production? Yes, of course. We have them on production right here on the top possibility. So for that reason, B is eliminated, and D is our answer to number 15. Next, number 16. This question is a bit more difficult, a bit more abstract. This question is asking us for which piece of information would determine the possibilities fully, leaving no ambiguity at all. So we just run through the choices. Luckily, we have our 4 main diagrams here, so we can make use of these to see whether a particular answer choice limits the possibilities so that there is no ambiguity at all. So A, F and W both on production. Would those guys being on production limit us to only one scenario? They wouldn't, because we've F and W on production in multiple scenarios. We have F and W on production here. We could have F and W on production in the 3rd diagram, or even in the 4th. So that is not really that limiting at all, and A is eliminated. B, G and Y both on sales. So G and Y on sales, where do we have that? We have that in the 2nd possibility. We also could have that in the 3rd possibility. So that is not particularly limiting, and B is gone. C, I and W both on sales. We have I and W on sales in the top possibility, and that's the only one. We could have one of I or W in the 3rd possibility, but not both of them. So only the top possibility has I and W on sales, and in that situation, there are no slashes, no empty slots. Everything is fully determined, so C is our answer to number 16. I'll go through D and E though. I and W both on production. That happens in the 2nd possibility, but could also happen in the 4th possibility. So 2 different scenarios could result when you have I and W on production. That is not limiting enough. E, I and X both on production. Where do we have that? I and X on production happens in this 3rd possibility right here. But even if I and X were both on production, we wouldn't know whether we had G on management and W on sales, or W on management, and G on sales. So even though that's occurring within this third possibility, it's still not limiting enough, so E is eliminated, leaving C as our answer. Next, number 17, accurate partial list of applicants hired for sales. So except. So 4 of these will be good lists, 1 of them will be a bad list. So since we have all the possibilities listed, we can just run through the choices, seeing whether those people could be on sales at the same time. G and I, choice A, we have them both on sales right here in the top possibility, so A is eliminated. G and X, both on sales. Well, G's on sales here, but X is not. G's on sales in the second one, X is not. G on sales in the third, X is not. G's not even on sales in the fourth one, although X is. So B never happens. It is our answer to number 17. I will go through the rest though. G and Y, both on sales. That happens in the second possibility, and could happen in the third one, so C is gone. D, H and W, both on sales. Does that happen? It could happen in this third possibility with H on sales and then maybe W on sales too. D is gone. E, H and X, both on sales. I see in the bottom possibility right here, the fourth one, X, H, Y, so E is gone, leaving B as our answer for 17. Next, number 18, if F and X were in the same department, then 4 things could be true, 1 of them could not be true. So where do we have F and X in the same department? Of course, that department would be production because F is always in production. That really only seems to happen here, not in the first, where X is not in production, not in the second, where X is not in production. The third possibility right here, we have F and X both in production. So this is the only relevant scenario here. The fourth one does not have X in production. So we're looking specifically here. What could be true? 4 of these things could be true. G on sales. Yes, that could happen on the bottom level right here, the sales level. So for that reason, A is gone. B, H in production. No, H is specifically in sales, so B is our answer for number 18. I will go through the rest though. I in sales. Yeah, that seems fine. We could have that happen. D, W on management. Yes, W could be on management on the top level there, so D is gone. E, W on production. Yes, W could be in production, W or I. Either one is fine. E is gone, leaving B as our answer as the cannot. Next, number 19. If X is not in production, what could be true? So let's figure out which diagrams are relevant here. Unfortunately, a lot of them are. The top possibility, X was in management, so that's relevant. In the second possibility, X was in management, so that's relevant. Third diagram, not relevant. X is in production there. We're not going to make use of this diagram. The fourth one, X on sales, that is relevant. So we still have 3 relevant scenarios here. The first, the second, and the fourth. All of these are useful to us. So general question, what could be true? F and H, both in sales. They're both on production here, so that didn't happen there. They're separated here, that didn't happen. Bottom possibility, they're separated. So A is eliminated, that is a cannot for this question. B, H, and W, both in sales. Here they're separated, here they're separated, here they're separated. So for that reason, B is gone. C, F and Y both in production. We have a hit on the top possibility. F and Y are both in production, so C is our answer for 19. I will go through the rest though. D, G, and W both on production. Do we see that happening at all? They're both on sales in the top possibility. They're separated in the second one. They're separated in this last one, so D is eliminated for 19. E, H, and W both in production. They are separated on the top possibility. They're separated in the second one. They're separated in the fourth. So for that reason, E is eliminated, and C is our answer for 19.